Hey there. I cannot believe that it is almost Thanksgiving, and tomorrow is actually a potluck for my office. So tonight, I'm gonna go ahead and make some stuffing so that I can bring that in, and I'm kind of using it as a recipe test for next week when it's actually the real deal. So when I was thinking about what I wanted to do for Thanksgiving this year, I was thinking back to my very first Thanksgiving in Orlando, which was my very first Thanksgiving away from home, where it was my first Thanksgiving I was going to be cooking at all. And I was very ambitious and I really wanted to make everything from scratch and the best that I possibly could. But the one thing that I couldn't do was bake bread yet. So I went and I found this really incredible local German bakery that made a roasted garlic sourdough. And I went there for years for Thanksgiving to get this bread because I always said that was my secret, that was why my stuffing was so good. It was the bread. And then that bakery closed. And for the past few years, I've just been using a regular sourdough that I picked up. But this year, I figured out how to make bread. I figured out how to make sourdough. And so this year, I wanted to try and make a roasted garlic sourdough so that I can try and make that same sourdough bread again to make the best stuffing that I've ever made. And then on top of it, who doesn't love rosemary with roasted garlic? So I'm going to do a roasted garlic and rosemary sourdough bread, and then I'm going to make my stuffing in the crock pot. So good for the potluck tomorrow at the office because I can just take that and let it cook all morning, and then it'll be ready at lunchtime. So let's get started. Let's throw it back to Jenna from the past, and you can see all of the things that I've been doing over the last week to get the bread ready so we can do the stuffing today. The step for this is going to be roasting some garlic. So I'm going to peel some of the paper off of some garlic heads that I've got here right now. I'm going to cut off the top, and then they are going to bake in the oven until they're nice and roasty and soft and sweet. And you just want to leave some of the paper here, most of it just that it can get, so that it can stay together. And then I'm going to chop off the top. There we go, so you can see all the little eyes. Pop it on some foil. And drizzle some olive oil on top. Move it around. And then seal up your little foil package. And move on to the next one. There we go. Rub it all around, and then seal the package. And then next, we are going to pop this in the oven at 400 degrees for about 40-45 minutes, and you get all like nice and roasty and soft and sweet and everything you want roasted garlic to be. Okay, it's time to pull these out of the oven and see if they are ready. I'm just going to open up the foil packet. It's going to be hot. Oh yeah, look at that. Absolutely beautiful, golden. Let me just stick it with the knife to make sure it's soft. Oh yeah, it's like butter. That is perfect. And then tomorrow when I make my bread, I'm going to go ahead and put a whole bunch of these roasted garlic cloves in with the bread to get that flavor all throughout it. Is making our actual bread, so I'm just going to get a standard sourdough bread dough going right now, and then as we go through stretch and fold, I'll go ahead and add in all of our inclusions. So first up, I've got the water. Mix that on in with the sourdough starter. And then I've got some bread flour. You want to use a strong bread flour anytime that you are doing sourdough. I like to use King Arthur's bread flour. It just seems to have the best results for me of what's available locally. And then also some sea salt. And that's it for the ingredients for dough. It's always so simple. So we're just going to mix this up into a shaggy dough and then pop a bowl cover on it and let it sit for about an hour so that it can rest, get hydrated, and then we're going to start our first set of stretching folds. Alright, and then we've got a nice shaggy dough right there. I'm going to pop the bowl cover on there, and I will see you in about an hour to start our stretch and folds. Time to go ahead and do our first set of stretch and folds. So let's go ahead. We're going to go ahead, lift up our dough, pick it up and put it over, turn the bowl, and just keep on doing that until that dough starts to come together. And then we're going to pop it in to my proofing basket, which is just a clear container that I always use. All right, so we got a lot smoother. And right in there for the next half an hour. And then the next stretch and fold, we're going to start adding some inclusions. All right, time to add some inclusions. So I've got my roasted garlic. I've just pulled it out of the peels itself. And I'm just going to pop it in here. And this should be okay for the rise and everything because we've roasted it and it's sweet. If this was fresh garlic, it would really get in the way of the rise. But it should be okay to add now. And then I've also chopped up that rosemary. I'm going to add that on top too. And then we're just going to incorporate this through our stretch and folds. So same as before. Pick up from the bottom, fold it over, give it a turn, same deal. Once again. You can see as this has been going on, we're getting a whole lot smoother on the bread. So pop a lid back on and let it sit for another 30. Stretch and fold number 3. Go ahead. Dough is starting to relax, get a lot more smooth and shiny with every single stretch and fold. Man, I can smell this rosemary as I do this. So it is really going to be permeated through. Alright, last one. Alright, and then we're going to come back in a half an hour for our last set of stretch and folds. Very last stretch and fold. So this has been hanging out for just about 2 hours, doing some stretch and folds every half an hour or so, just to kind of get some strength in the dough and get everything incorporated all throughout. And you can see as I'm stretching and folding it now, that stuff isn't really contained inside anymore. It's all throughout. You can see the rosemary, you can see the garlic. It's exactly what you want because then there's going to be flavor all throughout that loaf of dough. So that was my last stretch and fold. It's going to give it some structure so that when we actually go ahead and make the bread, it's going to be a really nice airy loaf of sourdough. So I'm going to pop this on, let it go through its bulk ferment for a couple hours, and once it's all jiggly and puffy, let's shape some dough. Three hours, and we've got a nice, lovely, jiggly sourdough. So it is time to move on to the next stage, which is going to be pre-shaping for this bread. So I'm going to dump this baby out. I'm gonna wet my hands a little bit. All right, I'm gonna pop this sucker out onto the counter. All right, there we go. Sometimes it takes a second just to separate out, but she does come out. I'm just going to do a quick roll up on this. There we go. I'm just gonna drag her around just to get some tension in the dough. And then after working with this for a little bit, there we go. All right. I'm just gonna let that baby sit for about 30 minutes, rest from the way that we've been working it, and then it'll be time to do its real shaping. Life happened a little bit, not gonna lie, it's been like an hour and a half instead of about 30 minutes, but we're not too overproofed, and it's still got that skin on it, so we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna shape it, and we're gonna hope for the best. So I'm just gonna sprinkle some rice flour on my counter. I'm gonna flip her over onto that. And then spread it out, just so we can do some shaping on it. This is gonna be a standard boule, so I'm gonna go ahead, fold that baby over, fold that one over, and then just roll her up. And then pull it for some tension. We're looking good. I've got a little bit of a smooth side. I'm going to use my bench scraper to pop this up, and then upside down, right into my banneton, full cover, and then this is going to go in the fridge, and you'll see me in 24 to 36 hours so we can bake it. It's me again. It's like 24 hours later, and I've given the bread a good amount of time to ferment in the fridge. So we are going to go ahead and score this and bake it. I have my Dutch oven here that has been preheating in a 450-degree oven for about an hour. So let's go ahead and score our dough and get this in the oven. So I use a bread sling for this. This is non-stick. Just goes right in there, and then I can just pick everything up right out of the Dutch oven. So flip it over onto my bread sling, and then I've got a little slicer. I'm just gonna do a nice deep score right there. Give it a second run so that it's got some place to expand. And then I do a little shallower one here, so we can get everything all the way around. All right, so in the Dutch oven, pop the lid on it. I throw a couple ice cubes in there so we can get some nice steam developing. Oh yeah, look at that. There we go. A couple of ice cubes. Haha, you hear that sizzle. And we want to get that lid on there. Get it in the oven quickly, and it is going to bake for about 30 minutes before I take the lid off at 450. I also have a baking pan on the bottom shelf below it, just that the bottom doesn't get too dark. So I will see you in about 30 minutes. Take the lid off and continue baking. It has gone by. Time to take the lid off of the Dutch oven, see where we're at, and then finish the bake. I've also turned my oven down to 410 for the last 10 to 15 minutes of the bake, just so that it's not quite as hot when it's not covered and not protected. So let's take a look. Oh, there we go. She's pretty. She's got a little oven spring to her, but let's go ahead, pop it back in for another about 10 minutes or so to brown, and then she'll be good to go. 15 minutes have gone by. We should have a nice golden toasty loaf of bread here that we can pull out to cool. Oh yeah, that is looking good. There we go. It's got a good crust on it, real dark up on the top. That's gonna be a good loaf of bread. All right, so we're just going to take this out and let it cool on a cooling rack. then in a day or so, when it starts to dry out just a little bit, I'm actually gonna cut it up, and then we are going to dry it out in the oven because that is going to be really good for our stuffing. So, see you for the next step, probably sometime tomorrow. In about 2 days or so, and I've had all of the willpower in the world because I have not even cut into this loaf of bread. I have not tasted it, none of it. So we are going to see how this bread even turned out, although it is a couple days in, it's a little bit like softer and a little bit more stale, but today is the day that I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna cut this up into cubes and I'm gonna dry it out in the oven so that we can get it going for stuffing tomorrow. So let's go on with the next step and actually see how this bread turned out. All right, we got some pretty good lacing on there. Oh, it smells really good. It smells like rosemary. It's not going to be squishy like it usually is, but because, you know, I'm not going to get that crunch because it's been here for a couple days, but let's just give it a little taste. See how it turned out. Definitely so good for stuffing. Like, the rosemary is going to come through and there's going to be more rosemary in the actual stuffing itself and just that really nice sweetness of the roasted garlic. I'm really excited about this. So let's go ahead and cut this up and pop it in the oven and dry them out. Wasn't too bad. All right, so I've got my loaf cubed up. We're gonna dry it in the oven at about 275 for like 45 minutes. I'm gonna toss the bread a couple times while it's baking so that it can dry out. Basically, this is a better way to make sure that all of your bread is like actually dried out and not just stale, because sometimes when it's stale, there's still some moisture in there, and then you can still end up with some gummy stuffing. And since we are going to be doing this in a crock pot, I want to give it the best chance as being like good stuffing and not just kind of like a gummy mess. So 275 for about 45 minutes so we can dry it out, and then tomorrow we should be ready to bake. We're ready to make some stuffing. It's been about 45 minutes. Let's grab these out of the oven. Nice and crispy and dry and ready to go for stuffing. So let's go back to present day Jenna and let's finally put the stuffing together. All right, so we are ready to get the stuffing started for real. I've got 2 sticks of butter on the stove that are melting right now, and I'm gonna chop up 2 onions and a couple of stalks of celery so that I can get that in with the butter, let it soften. I'm gonna throw the seasonings in with that so that everything can get nice and flavored. Let's go ahead and cut this up. Okay, we got a bunch of sage, a bunch of rosemary, some parsley. We want to get some really nice fresh herbs in there to kind of bring it up. So let's go ahead and get the rosemary pulled off of the woody part. And then we're just going to do a rough chop on this. There's nothing has to be too exact. Everything's going to cook. We just want to have that herby flavor throughout. And nothing goes out better than fresh herbs. I'm just going to pop this all into a pile and run my knife through it so you can do a rough chop. We got some parsley, sage, and rosemary. All of your classic Thanksgiving stuffing flavors. Oh, that's a little bit too much stuff. There we go. That is perfect. Pretty soon we're going to put everything together. I've got my onions and my celery all softened in about a cup of butter with some poultry seasoning and salt and pepper, and it smells incredible in here because onions cooking is one of the best smells in the world. So it's now time to assemble our stuffing. So I'm going to start with putting all of these few dried bread here that I made over the last week or so right in there. And then I'm going to put all of the onion and butter and celery in here. And yes, I'm using a Crockpot liner. This is going to work. I don't want to have to come home with a dirty Crockpot. It just makes everything easier. Sorry, but I prefer it. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and stir that up. Get the onions and celery all mixed in with the bread cubes. There we go. And then I have over there, it's 2 cups of water mixed with 3 teaspoons of better than bouillon. We need about 3 cups of broth. I only have a 2-cup measuring cup, so here's 2 cups with a little bit extra. And then I'm gonna put in 1 more cup. And stir up that last little bit of the remainder of the better than bouillon. There we go, that looks good. And then I'm also going to throw in all of those fresh herbs. I'm gonna mix that up. I'm gonna get the broth all through, get the herbs all through. Everything should be wet. It shouldn't be like soaking wet. You just want enough to get the bread, now everybody loves this word, but get the bread moist. You shouldn't have a ton pooling at the bottom, but there should be a little bit because that is going to soak in as it cooks. And the last thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to put 2 eggs in here. And that is going to help it kind of like solidify as it cooks tomorrow. So what I'm going to do, my plan is to put this in the fridge overnight, and then I'm not going to cook it right now. I'm not going to cook it overnight. I'm going to bring it to the office uncooked, and then in the morning I'm going to plug it in when I get there, and I'm going to let it cook all morning so that by the time we get to lunchtime and we're doing our big holiday potluck meal, everything is ready. The stuffing is warm and savory and ready to go. So there we go. I'm just going to push that down, and then this is going to go in the fridge. And thank you for joining me for some of my Thanksgiving prep and getting ready for next week. And honestly, this year has flown by so incredibly quickly. I cannot believe that Thanksgiving is next week, but this was a good opportunity for me to test out a new recipe, see how it goes, see how that bread recipe went, which was really good. And yeah, just enjoy a little bit of my favorite part of Thanksgiving from the last few years, which is a stuffing made with an incredible roasted garlic sourdough bread. If you enjoyed this, please go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe down below, and I will see you next week.
Bye.